I'm Charlotte, and I grew up in a small town where everybody knew everybody else's business. My sister Elizabeth is just a year older than me, and growing up, we were actually pretty close, or at least I thought we were. Our parents were hardworking folks, both putting in long hours at the local factory. We weren't rich by any means, but we got by okay. The real highlight of our weeks was Sunday dinners at our grandparents' place. Mom's parents lived right next door to us. Those dinners were something special. Grandma would cook up a storm, and Grandpa would tell us stories about the old days. I always loved those gatherings, sitting there at their big oak table, surrounded by the smell of home-cooked food and the warmth of family. Elizabeth was always more interested in her phone than the family conversation, even back then. "God, these dinners take forever," she'd whisper to me, scrolling through her social media feed under the table. I could be hanging out with my friends right now. Time flew by, and before we knew it, Elizabeth was heading off to college to study management. She was all about the glamorous life, always dressed to the nines, and posting perfectly filtered photos on Instagram. I followed her a year later, but my path was different. I chose to study design. Our parents had saved up enough for both of us to attend decent public colleges. Nothing fancy, but solid schools that would give us a good education. "Your sister's going to be a successful businesswoman," Mom would tell everyone proudly. "And Charlotte, well, she's always been good with her hands." I didn't mind the comparison back then. I was too busy falling in love with design, sketching wedding dresses in the margins of my notebooks during lectures, and dreaming about creating beautiful things. Little did I know how different our paths would become, or how one family dinner would change everything. Looking back now, I can see the signs were there from the beginning. Elizabeth was always chasing the spotlight, while I was content working behind the scenes. But when our grandparents called us all together for a special dinner after graduation, neither of us had any idea how our choices would end up tearing our family apart. The restaurant was packed that evening, but all I could focus on was the envelope Grandpa was holding. When he finally cleared his throat and stood up, the whole family fell silent. "Elizabeth, Charlotte," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "your grandmother and I have watched you both grow up, graduate college, and become beautiful young women. We want to help you start your lives right." He handed each of us an envelope. "There's $50,000 for each of you. Use it wisely." I nearly choked on my water. $50,000? That was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. Elizabeth, on the other hand, barely waited for dessert before she started planning. "I'm opening an exclusive clothing store," she announced, already scrolling through her phone. "High-end brands, designer collections. It's going to be amazing." "Have you done any market research?" I asked, remembering her business management classes. She rolled her eyes. "Please, Charlotte, I know what sells. Trust me, this is going to be huge." And just like that, Elizabeth was off and running. She rented this ridiculous space in the most expensive part of town, the kind of place where you feel underdressed just walking past the windows. Every day, her Instagram was flooded with new posts: Elizabeth posing in designer clothes, Elizabeth at business meetings, Elizabeth calling herself a young CEO building her empire. "Look at this marketing campaign I'm launching," she told me one day, showing me the thousands she was spending on social media ads. "I've hired the best sales team in town. We're going to be the next big thing." Meanwhile, I took my time. I spent weeks researching, making spreadsheets, and running numbers. My dream had always been different. I wanted to create wedding dresses, to be part of someone's special day. I found this tiny space, nothing fancy, but it had good natural light and potential. I drew up the plans myself, creating a cozy workspace with a comfortable waiting area for brides. I reached out to Maria, an amazing seamstress I'd known for years, who had more experience with wedding dresses than anyone in town. "Charlotte, this could really work," she said as we set up the studio. "You've got the eye for design, and I know how to bring your sketches to life." I also called Sarah, my best friend from design school. "Want to help make some brides really happy?" I asked her. She was on board immediately. We started small. No flashy advertising campaigns, just a simple website and some local flyers. Our first bride came through her cousin, who'd seen our workshop and liked how personal it felt. Then her friend came, and her friend's sister, and slowly, through word of mouth, we started building a reputation. "You're doing this all wrong," Elizabeth said when she stopped by one day. "Where's your social media strategy? Your brand positioning? You need to think bigger." But I was thinking different, not bigger. Every dress we made was unique, every bride special. While Elizabeth was posting about being a girl boss in her designer outfits, I was sitting with real women and listening to their dreams about their perfect wedding dress. The first year was tough, but rewarding. We started with simple designs at reasonable prices, just trying to get our name out there. I remember our first $1,000 dress. The bride hugged me so hard after the final fitting, I thought she might never let go. "Charlotte, you've made my dream come true," she said, twirling in front of the mirror. Word spread quickly after that. By the second year, we were getting more elaborate requests. "Can you do hand beading? Is it possible to add custom lace?" Of course we could. Maria's skills were incredible, and Sarah had a real talent for details. We started doing bridesmaid dresses too, it just made sense when brides kept asking. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's Instagram posts were getting desperate. The designer clothes in her photos were the same ones over and over. Her exclusive store was empty most days. I'd walk past sometimes and see her sitting alone at the counter, scrolling through her phone. Then one day, Mom called me in tears. "Your sister's in trouble, Charlotte. She's losing everything." Elizabeth had blown through the entire $50,000, plus loans she'd taken out. The expensive rent, the unsold inventory, the massive advertising campaigns, it all caught up with her. Her empire collapsed in just 3 years. "I don't understand," she sobbed at a family dinner. "I did everything right. I had the perfect location, the best brands. Everything except actually running a business, I thought, but kept my mouth shut." She looked so different now, no more designer clothes, no more perfectly staged photos. Depression hit her hard. That's when Mom and Dad started their campaign. "Charlotte, honey," Mom began one evening at their house. "Your sister needs a job, and you need a manager. It's perfect. She could help you expand the business." The pressure was constant. Elizabeth started showing up at the studio unannounced, critiquing everything from our booking system to our window display. "You really should be more active on social media," she'd say, "or this space is too small for a successful business." Finally, during yet another family dinner where they were all ganging up on me, I snapped. "Are you kidding me?" I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. Elizabeth couldn't keep her own business afloat for 3 years. She burned through 50 grand plus loans on Instagram ads and designer clothes. She never did market research, never tracked inventory properly, never built real relationships with customers. "And now you want her to manage my business?" Elizabeth's face crumpled. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you?" "No, I just think you're a terrible businesswoman. You can't manage my studio, you couldn't even manage your own store." The silence that followed was deafening. Elizabeth burst into tears and ran from the room. Mom was shaking with anger. "How dare you speak to your sister that way?" Dad thundered. "After everything she's been through?" "Everything she's been through?" I grabbed my purse. "You mean everything she did to herself?" "I'm done. Done with the guilt trips, done with the pressure, done with all of it." I walked out that night, and I haven't been back since. 3 years of hard work building my business, and my family wanted to hand it over to the person who'd proven she couldn't handle it. 3 years can change a lot. My little studio wasn't so little anymore. We'd expanded into the space next door, hired 2 more seamstresses, and had a waiting list months long. Our dresses now started at $8,000, and nobody blinked an eye. Quality speaks for itself. "Charlotte, we need to raise our prices again," Maria told me one morning. "We're turning away too many brides." She was right. Between her masterful sewing, Sarah's eye for detail, and my designs, we'd built something special. Each dress was a work of art, and word had spread far beyond our little town. I was reviewing some sketches when the message popped up on my phone. Elizabeth. My stomach did a weird flip when I saw her name. We hadn't spoken since that night at our parents' house. No, hi, no, how are you? Just, I'm getting married in 2 months and I need a wedding dress. Can you do it? I nearly dropped my phone. Elizabeth? Getting married? Last I'd heard through Mom's occasional updates, which I never asked for but got anyway, she was working some office job and still living in her old apartment. 2 months? I typed back. Elizabeth, we usually need 5 to 6 months for a custom dress. There's a whole process, multiple fittings, adjustments. Her response came immediately, come on, Charlotte, we're sisters. Or are you too successful now to help your own family? Must be nice being so successful, you can turn away your own sister. I stared at the message for a long time. The old Charlotte would have fired back something nasty. But I'd grown up a lot in 3 years. Let me check my schedule, I wrote instead. I spent that night reworking our entire production timeline. We had a bride, Jessica, whose dress was scheduled to start next week. I'd have to call her and explain we couldn't take her order after all. I'm so sorry, I told Jessica the next morning. I know this is unexpected. I'd like to give you this custom veil as an apology, it's one of our best pieces. And I have a colleague who does beautiful work, she can make your dress exactly as we planned. Jessica was disappointed but understood. I shifted 3 other dresses around, knowing we'd be working overtime for weeks. Are you sure about this? Sarah asked when I told her about Elizabeth's dress. After everything that happened? I wasn't sure. But I replied to Elizabeth's message, okay, I'll make your dress. Come in next Tuesday at 10 a.m. for measurements. The response was just, great, make it good. No thank you. No acknowledgement of the massive favor I was doing her. Just entitlement, same as always. But something made me want to do this, maybe curiosity, maybe hope, maybe just the chance to prove something to myself. When Elizabeth came in for her first appointment, I decided to do something I'd never done before, offer a family discount. A big one. The dress you want would normally be $10,000, I explained, showing her my sketches. But I'll only charge you for materials and seamstress time. $5,000. Elizabeth barely glanced at the price. Oh, that's fine. Richard, my fiancé, can easily afford it. He's loaded. Owns half the commercial real estate downtown. That was the beginning of what felt like an endless stream of fittings and alterations. Elizabeth was in the studio constantly, always wanting to tweak something about the dress. The neckline needs to be lower, she'd say one day. No, higher, the next. Can we add more beading? Different lace? More sparkle? At first, it was exhausting. But gradually, something shifted. Between fittings, Elizabeth would plop down on our plush consultation sofa, kick off her shoes, and talk. And talk, and talk. Richard's such a bore, she'd say, rolling her eyes while Maria pinned her hem. All he does is talk about business and golf. But his bank account? She'd make a chef's kiss gesture. That makes up for everything. I kept my face neutral, focusing on adjusting a seam. You don't think that might be a problem? Please, you know what's a problem? Being broke. Besides, you should see his family. His sister, Elizabeth lowered her voice conspiratorially, goes to therapy twice a week. Like, how messed up do you have to be? The gossip was endless. Richard's mother was trying too hard to stay young. His father was probably having an affair with his secretary. Her friends weren't spared either, she had a nickname for each one, usually focusing on their insecurities or failures. Jenny Bad Botox Miller is going to be so jealous of this dress, she'd laugh. And Sarah Forever Single Thompson? She's going to die when she sees me walking down the aisle. I should have been put off by all of it. The old me would have called her out, started another fight. But something held me back. Maybe it was the way she'd automatically reach for my hand when she saw herself in the mirror. Or how she'd bring me coffee, remembering exactly how I liked it, when she came for fittings. Small moments like these made me think maybe, just maybe, we were finding our way back to being sisters. Sure, the gossip made me uncomfortable, and her attitude toward her fiancé worried me, but wasn't this what I'd wanted? A chance to repair our relationship? So I nodded and smiled, letting her chatter fill the studio while the dress took shape under my hands. With each fitting, each coffee, each shared memory, I felt the wall between us crumbling just a little bit more. Things were looking up. Elizabeth and I even reconnected on social media. Suddenly my feed was full of her engagement photos and wedding planning updates. She'd tag me in posts about the dress, always with lots of heart emojis and best sister ever captions. Mom called me one evening, sounding happier than she had in years. "I'm so glad you girls worked things out," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This is all we ever wanted, you know. Our family back together." Dad even stopped by the studio one day, awkwardly hovering near the entrance, before pulling me into a tight hug. "We missed you, kiddo," he mumbled into my hair. It felt good. Really good. Like maybe the past 3 years of silence had been worth it if this was the result. A week before the wedding, Elizabeth called me. "The dress is ready, right?" she asked, excitement bubbling in her voice. "I'm having my bachelorette party tomorrow night at Moonlight Bar. Can you bring it? I want all my girls to see it." The next evening, I carefully packed the dress into our nicest gift box, the one with our studio's gold logo embossed on cream-colored paper. I'd spent countless hours on this dress, the hand-beaded bodice, the delicate lace overlay, the subtle shimmer in the train. It was some of my best work. The taxi dropped me off at Moonlight Bar, and I could hear the party before I saw it, laughter and music spilling out onto the street. Inside, a group of women in matching Team Bride t-shirts crowded around tables decorated with pink balloons and scattered rose petals. Elizabeth squealed when she saw me. Girls, the dress is here." They gathered around as I carefully lifted it from the box. The reaction was everything a designer could hope for: gasps, sighs, a few tears. "Elizabeth, it's absolutely gorgeous. I've never seen anything like it. The detail work is incredible. Your sister is so talented." The dress made its rounds, each bridesmaid taking turns holding it up and admiring different aspects. I felt proud, not just of the dress, but of this moment. Standing here with my sister, sharing in her happiness. When the dress was safely back in its box, I grabbed a glass of wine from the bar and found an empty chair at one of the tables. The night was young, the mood was festive, and for the first time in years, I felt like I truly belonged in my sister's life again. I was just getting comfortable, taking my first sip of wine, when I felt a harsh tug on my arm. Elizabeth stood over me, her perfectly made-up face twisted into an expression I knew all too well from our childhood: pure disdain. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed, her manicured nails digging into my arm. "Having a drink?" I said, confused. "Celebrating with you?" Elizabeth let out a sharp, cruel laugh that made several heads turn. "Celebrating? With me? Oh honey, you're not a guest here. You're the seamstress. You delivered the dress, now it's time for you to go." The wine glass nearly slipped from my hand. "What?" "Ladies," Elizabeth announced to the room, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Charlotte isn't joining us. She's just the dressmaker I hired. You know, like when the caterer drops off food? They don't stay for the party." The silence in the room was deafening. Some of the women looked uncomfortable, others confused. One of them, who I now recognized as Richard's sister, Amanda, gave me a sympathetic look. "All this playing nice, the coffee dates, the sister bonding?" Elizabeth continued, waving her hand dismissively. "That was just business. I needed a dress, you needed a customer. Let's not pretend it was anything more. Something snapped inside me. 3 years of silence, followed by months of fake reconciliation, it was too much. If she wanted the truth out, fine. Let's have all the truth. Just business? I stood up slowly, setting my wine glass down with deliberate care. Okay, Elizabeth, let's talk business. Let's talk about how you've spent the last 2 months telling me what a boring, pathetic man your fiancé is. Elizabeth's face went pale. Charlotte, don't you dare. Oh, what was it you called him? A walking ATM? A necessary evil? Ladies, did you know Elizabeth doesn't even like Richard? She just likes his bank account. Amanda stood up from her seat, her face shocked. Elizabeth tried to interrupt, but I was on a roll. And Amanda, I turned to her, your future sister-in-law here has some lovely opinions about you. What was it you called her, Elizabeth? The crazy one foot? The family nutcase who needs therapy twice a week to function? Amanda's hand flew to her mouth. Is that true? I have proof, I said, pulling out my phone. Elizabeth's been sending me voice messages for months. Want to hear them? Before Elizabeth could stop me, I played the first message. God, Amanda is such a mental case. Richard says she's been in therapy for years. Can you imagine being that messed up? Then another, Jenny's Botox makes her look like a surprised fish. At least she'll look appropriate when she sees my dress, her jaws already permanently dropped. And another, Sarah's so desperate to find a man, she'll probably try to catch the bouquet before I even throw it. What a pathetic spinster. One by one, the women around the room recognized Elizabeth's cruel nicknames and comments about them. Jenny touched her face self-consciously. Sarah wiped away tears. Amanda grabbed her purse and ran out the door. These are your friends, I said, my voice shaking. Your bridesmaids. And this is how you talk about them behind their backs. The room erupted into chaos. Women were grabbing their bags, some crying, others yelling at Elizabeth. Elizabeth stood in the middle of it all, her face contorted with rage and panic as her carefully constructed world fell apart around her. She's lying, she screamed. Charlotte's making this up because she's jealous. But the voice messages were still playing, her own voice, condemning her with every word. I picked up my purse and the empty dress box. At the door, I turned back one last time. By the way, you haven't paid for the dress yet. I'll send you the invoice, full price this time. No family discount for someone who isn't really family. The morning after the bachelorette party disaster, my phone rang at 7 a.m. Mom's name flashed on the screen. What have you done? She screamed, before I could even say hello. Elizabeth is hysterical. The wedding might be called off. How could you ruin your sister's special day? I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. How could I ruin it? Are you kidding me? Amanda won't even speak to her. Half the bridesmaids have dropped out. This is all your fault. The familiar anger bubbled up, the same feeling I'd had 3 years ago. Of course it's my fault. It's always my fault, isn't it, Mom? Never precious Elizabeth's. Not when she bankrupted her business, not when she treated me like dirt, not when she spent months trash-talking her fiancé and his family. And by the way, she hasn't even paid for her dress. Charlotte. No, Mom, I'm done. Elizabeth made her bed, now she can lie in it. And you and Dad? You're just as bad, always taking her side, always making excuses for her. I'm done with all of it. A week passed, then another. I threw myself into work, designing new dresses, meeting with brides who actually appreciated what I did. I tried not to think about the wedding that may or may not have happened. Then, 3 weeks after the bachelorette party, Mom's number appeared on my phone again. I almost didn't answer. Charlotte? Her voice was different this time, quieter, hesitant. I owe you an apology. She told me everything. The wedding had happened, but it was a shadow of the grand event Elizabeth had planned. Richard had forgiven Elizabeth, but his parents and Amanda didn't attend. Most of the bridesmaids backed out. The church was half empty. I was wrong, Mom said, her voice cracking. I've always been wrong about Elizabeth. I see that now. I just wanted both my girls to be happy. I am happy, Mom. Without Elizabeth in my life. There was a long pause. I know. I transferred the money for the dress. Full price, $10,000. Thanks. After that, we found a new normal. I started visiting my parents again, but only when I knew Elizabeth wouldn't be there. Apparently, she did the same. We developed an unspoken schedule. She got holidays, I got Sunday dinners. When we accidentally crossed paths, we acted like polite strangers. Mom tried to tell me about Elizabeth sometimes, her marriage problems, her struggles to fit in with Richard's social circle. I always changed the subject. Her life wasn't my concern anymore. My own life? It's pretty great. The studio is thriving, we're looking at expanding to a second location. I'm dating this incredible guy who designs custom furniture, he gets the whole creative business thing. Last month, one of my dresses was featured in a major wedding magazine. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that bachelorette party and wonder if I did the right thing. But then I remember Elizabeth's voice in those messages, the casual cruelty, the fake sisterly bond, and I know I did. Sometimes the best family is the one you choose, the friends who become sisters, the colleagues who become family. Yesterday, I hired 2 new seamstresses. Next week, I'm meeting with a real estate agent about a space in the city. Life moves forward, with or without the people who once held us back.